last night, Politico published this article where they allege that a leaked opinion from the Supreme Court will cause Roe v. Wade to be overturned within a matter of months. Now, it's a leaked opinion, so they allege it is true. I believe it's true because it's pretty in-depth, but there's still, I guess, this small possibility it's made up, but I don't believe that to be the case. So what happens here is this is an opinion, a majority opinion, written by Justice Alito that was leaked to Politico. The draft in question is 98 pages long. Politico says that they have independently confirmed its authenticity, and I, for one, kind of believe them because this is a pretty in-depth forgery, if that's what it is. Like, it's 98 pages long. There's a lot of footnotes, a lot of references. There's a 30-page appendix. So I believe it's true. And the important part is that it's a majority opinion where 5 Supreme Court justices allegedly are in favor of this opinion, and they say that we hold that Roe and Casey, meaning Planned Parenthood v. Casey, must be overruled. The Constitution makes no reference to abortion, and no such right is implicitly protected, meaning that you cannot say, as the Supreme Court did in 1973, that there is a right to an abortion inherent in the Constitution. And without that right, you also cannot say that states have no power to restrict abortion. So now if we jump down to the conclusion, they say abortion presents a profound moral question. The Constitution does not prohibit the citizens of each state from regulating or prohibiting abortion. Roe and Casey arrogated that authority. We now overrule those decisions and return that authority to the people and their elected representatives. As I said, Roe v. Wade is not currently overruled. But if this draft opinion is still the majority of the opinion of the Supreme Court within the next few months, when they publish this actual ruling, then Roe v. Wade will be overturned, which is a pretty huge deal. Now let's talk about what that means and what that doesn't mean. We'll talk about this CNN article in just one second. But effectively, if Roe v. Wade is overturned, that does not mean that abortion is now illegal in the United States. That's a fairly common misconception. Instead, abortion laws would revert to how they were before Roe v. Wade, meaning it was a state issue. States could decide when and how to restrict abortion access. If they didn't want abortion to be available, they could prevent that. If they said up until 24 weeks or viability, they could allow that and then prevent it afterwards. This will become a state issue. So if you are a hardcore liberal living in places like New York or California, this will not change anything. But for states like Mississippi, where this entire argument came from, it's because Mississippi passed a law trying to ban abortion after 15 weeks. And the Supreme Court not only upheld that decision, as we see here, but they overturned Roe v. Wade completely, meaning that in Mississippi, that law could now go into effect that abortions past 15 weeks would no longer be allowed. It also means that the heartbeat bills that have been passed in other states could also be implemented. So with Roe v. Wade gone, this would become a state issue, which I think kind of makes sense. That's how it was before, until the Supreme Court decided unilaterally that they would take all power from the states and just say that abortion must be accessible. So this article, now we're going to look at CNN for just a little bit. We're almost done here. But I want to highlight some important parts. So they say that the draft was circulated in early February, which we already knew, and that the opinion is expected to be published in late June, which is roughly 2 months from now. So in 2 months, perhaps earlier now, because there's a lot of attention on the specific case because of this leaked draft, we're going to know for sure if Roe v. Wade has been overturned. Now, the question is, why was this draft leaked in the first place? And I think that's fairly obvious. In my opinion, it was probably someone like a clerk working with one of the liberal judges who saw how close Roe v. Wade was to being overturned, and they decided to take matters into their own hands. They leaked this opinion with the idea that they could get public outcry, public support, and maybe influence the opinion of the judges, or at least spur legislators to act and codify Roe v. Wade, which is exactly what they're trying to do, as we'll see in 1 second. But immediately after this came to light, there was a crowd of people at the Supreme Court Monday evening, with some of them chanting things like, "Hey, hey, ho, ho, Samuel Alito's gotta go," because if you disagree with his ruling, that means he's no longer fit to be a Supreme Court justice, apparently. We will not go back. Abortion rights are under attack. What do we do? Stand up, fight back, and pack the courts, which again shows you, I just love how Democrats talk about how politicized Republicans have made the court, with Donald Trump having 3 nominees, and they have been openly talking about packing the court for at least the last couple of years, as if packing the court doesn't immediately politicize the entire thing. But now, as CNN points out, and I think this is important, it's why I went to CNN, they say that the publishing of this draft is unprecedented by the high court standards of secrecy. Where they had Steve Vladek, who is a CNN Supreme Court analyst and a professor at University of Texas. He said that we have never seen a leak remotely like this from inside the court, where we're not just hearing what the result is going to be, but we're seeing the draft majority opinion in advance. Again, this is a huge deal that we shouldn't just, let go by the wayside. Someone, for the first time in modern American history, leaked such an important ruling or draft from the Supreme Court, and that is a huge deal. It's a huge deal because, again, they did so with the intention of changing or swaying the opinion of the court, or at least getting people to act to pressure the court. This is reminding me of what happened with Justice Breyer's retirement, because for quite a few months, Democrats were pushing him to retire because they didn't want to have another issue like they did with Ruth Bader Ginsburg, where she didn't retire when Obama was president, and then Trump was able to replace her with his own nominee. So they were pushing Breyer to retire so that Biden could appoint someone else. It seemed like he was eventually going to go through with it, saying that he was going to be announcing his retirement later this year. But when his announcement actually did come, it was leaked, meaning that he didn't actually make the announcement officially. Someone did it for him. So this example, and the one we just saw with the Roe v. Wade decision, is how the left has been leaking very specific pieces of information to try and push the court in the direction that they want. Now, back to CNN, just to finish this up. Again, the reason for this leaking was pretty obvious. They want Democrats to be upset. They want to try to spur them and help the midterm elections, which for Democrats and Joe Biden is not going to go very well. And they want action. So as we can see here, we have a Wisconsin state treasurer who said that Democrats need to act now to end the filibuster, codify Roe v. Wade, and defend reproductive freedom. And I just love how anything that ever happens for Democrats is an excuse to do what they already wanted to do. They've been talking about ending the filibuster for quite a while, again, because they don't like it when they're stopped from doing something. And now with Roe v. Wade coming to an end, this is just a perfect excuse to push ending the filibuster one more time. And we have, for example, Ohio Representative Tim Ryan saying the same thing. It's time to end the filibuster. A little bit further down, we have Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer saying that overturning Roe would be, quote, the greatest restriction of rights in the past 50 years, not just on women, but on all Americans. Saying that several of these conservative justices, who are in no way accountable to the American people, have lied to the U.S. Senate, ripped up the Constitution, and defiled both precedent and the Supreme Court's reputation. It is true, the Supreme Court justices are not directly accountable to the people. But they also weren't accountable to the people in 1973 when Roe v. Wade was first decided. So why is it that that very extreme decision was acceptable back then when they weren't accountable for the people, but now if we simply overturn that extreme decision, well, now it's horrific because you're not accountable by the people? It's the exact same scenario. The only difference is Democrats liked Roe v. Wade, meaning they don't want it to be overturned. But to say that they have ripped up the Constitution and they're defiling precedent and reputation, again, Democrats are the ones who are very strongly pushing for packing the court. Do you think packing the court doesn't disrupt the Supreme Court's reputation? Obviously it does. So this just shows the hypocrisy one more time. So this was a bit longer than I wanted it to be, and I apologize for that. But to conclude, Roe v. Wade is not currently overturned. So if you've heard something like that, it's not true. But the majority opinion of a court case that should be ending in just a few months makes it look like Roe v. Wade will be overturned by summer, which is actually a pretty huge deal. If that happened, all of the abortion-related decisions would fall down onto the states, where you could actually make a difference by voting for and electing the representatives that you want. It's no longer the Supreme Court saying with a heavy hand, you cannot impose these restrictions. It's now saying you actually have a right and you have a say in what happens. Let me know if you disagree with me and what you think about this entire thing. I think at the very least, we should all be able to agree how dangerous this precedent is. That if you don't like a ruling the Supreme Court is going to be enacting within a few months, will just leak the majority opinion and get your side to come in and try to stop that. That's a really bad way to do it, and that right there is what destroys the Supreme Court's reputation. Not getting rid of Roe v. Wade, but making it so their opinions are leaked before it even happens.